Some stories are not about monsters. They are about loneliness and the quiet pain of being unwanted. Welcome to Silent Volumes, a quiet place for stories after dark. Tonight, we travel into the cold mountains and quiet towns of old Europe, into a story that has unsettled readers for more than 2 centuries. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, a story about curiosity, loneliness, and the fragile line between creation and responsibility. Settle in, dim the light, and take a slow breath. If you fall asleep during this story, that's perfectly all right. Just let the words drift past like quiet thoughts in the night. Our story begins with a young man named Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant student filled with curiosity about the hidden forces of life. As a child, Victor grows up surrounded by warmth and kindness. His family believes deeply in knowledge, discovery, and the goodness of the world. But even as a boy, Victor feels a quiet pull toward darker questions. Questions most people are too afraid to ask. Why do living things die? And why must death be final? When Victor leaves home to study at the university, something inside him begins to change. The quiet curiosity of childhood slowly turns into obsession. He spends long nights reading old scientific texts, books about electricity, chemistry, and the strange mysteries of the human body. The more he learns, the more one idea begins to grow in his mind. A dangerous and intoxicating possibility. What if a human being could create life? Not simply study it, but give it form. At first, the thought seems impossible, but Victor cannot let it go. Soon, his days and nights blur together in the laboratory. Glass instruments, quiet sparks of electricity, and endless experiments. Outside, the seasons change, but Victor barely notices the passing of time. Sleep becomes rare. Food becomes an afterthought. All that matters is the work, and the moment when lifeless matter might begin to breathe. Months pass this way. Then one stormy night, Victor finally succeeds. The creature opens its eyes, and for the first time, something truly impossible stands before him. But the triumph Victor imagined never arrives. Instead, something far colder fills his heart. Fear. Victor cannot bear the sight of what he has created. The moment the creature begins to move, he turns away in horror. He had imagined beauty, perfection, even greatness. But what stands before him feels unfamiliar and frightening. The creature's eyes are open. It It is alive and quietly reaching toward its creator. But Victor runs. He leaves the laboratory and disappears into the cold night. For hours he wanders the empty streets, his mind racing. The excitement that once drove him has turned into deep regret. Morning comes slowly, and with it, a heavy sense of dread. When Victor finally returns to the laboratory, the creature is gone. It has disappeared into the wide and unfamiliar world. For a moment, Victor feels relief, as if the terrible mistake has simply vanished. But somewhere out there, the being he created has begun its life. And that life begins in complete loneliness. The creature wakes to a world it does not understand. Everything is new, loud, and strangely beautiful. Cold wind touches its skin. Soft light moves across the sky. At first it moves slowly, like a child learning to walk. Every sound, every shadow, every color feels overwhelming. Hunger soon follows, and with it, the first quiet struggle to survive. The creature wanders through forests and empty paths, watching the distant glow of homes from the darkness. Sometimes it sees people through the windows, families gathered together around warm fires. They laugh softly. They speak gently to one another. The creature watches in silence, not with anger, but with something closer to longing. Slowly it begins to learn. By listening from the shadows, words begin to make sense. Human voices become familiar, and with each passing day, the creature understands more. Not only language, but emotion. It learns what kindness looks like, what friendship sounds like, and with that knowledge, a quiet hope begins to grow. Perhaps one day someone will accept it. After many days of wandering, the creature discovers a small cottage. It stands quietly at the edge of a forest. Inside live 3 people, a father and his 2 children. The creature watches them from a hidden place nearby, careful never to be seen. Every morning, the young man leaves the house to gather wood, and the young woman prepares simple meals. Their lives are humble, but there is kindness in the way they care for each other. The father is blind. His eyes cannot see the world around him. And because of this, the others speak gently to him, describing the sunlight, the trees, and the passing seasons. The creature listens carefully to every word, learning slowly, day by day. Language begins to take shape in its mind, like small light At night, when the family sleeps, the creature does something unexpected. It gathers wood and quietly leaves it outside their door. A small act of kindness given in silence. As weeks pass, the creature feels strangely close to this family, even though they have never seen it. From them it learns words like hope, sorrow, and love, words that begin to feel deeply familiar. It listens to their conversations about hardship, about lost fortunes and difficult journeys, and slowly the creature understands something painful. These people are kind, but they are also suffering. This makes their kindness even more beautiful and even more fragile. Sometimes the creature imagines stepping into the cottage, sitting quietly beside the warm fire. Perhaps they would see that it means no harm. Perhaps they would listen. But fear holds it back, fear of their reaction. Until one quiet afternoon, an opportunity finally appears. The young man and woman leave the cottage for a short time. Only the blind father remains inside. The creature stands outside the door for a long moment, its heart racing with uncertainty. Then slowly it steps inside. The old man cannot see its appearance. He only hears a soft voice asking to speak. And for the first time, someone listens. The creature speaks carefully, explaining how lonely it has been, how it has watched this family with admiration, how deeply it longs for friendship. The blind man listens with compassion, unaware of who stands before him. For a brief moment, hope fills the creature's heart. But suddenly, the door opens. The children return home. They see the creature standing inside the cottage, and terror takes over instantly. They shout. They strike it. They drive it away. And in that moment, something inside the creature breaks. After the family drives it away, the creature runs deep into the forest. Snow begins to fall quietly between the trees. For a long time, it walks without direction, carrying a new and painful understanding. Kindness exists in the world, but it is not meant for everyone. The creature remembers every gentle word it heard in the cottage, every small moment of warmth it was never allowed to share. And slowly, sorrow begins to change into something darker. If the world will never accept it, then why should it continue to be gentle with the world? Yet even in its anger, one thought remains clear. There is one person responsible for its suffering, the one who gave it life and then abandoned it. Victor Frankenstein. Meanwhile, Victor's own life begins to unravel. The consequences of his secret creation slowly reach him. Strange tragedies begin to appear around him, events he cannot fully explain, yet quietly fears. Haunted by guilt, Victor returns to the mountains of his childhood, hoping the silence of nature might calm his mind. Tall peaks rise into the cold sky. Glaciers stretch endlessly across the valley. For a moment, standing among such vast beauty, Victor feels small again, like a human being instead of a creator. But as he walks across the ice, he sees a distant figure moving toward him. A tall shape against the white snow, moving with unnatural speed. Victor's heart begins to race because he already knows who it is. The creature stops a short distance away, and for the first time, creator and creation face one another. Victor is filled with anger. He calls the being a monster and a mistake. But the creature does not respond with violence. Not yet. Instead, it speaks calmly, with a voice shaped by loneliness and years of rejection. I did not ask to exist, it tells him. You brought me into this world. The creature explains everything it has experienced. The forests, the cold nights, and the cottage family. And then it says something that Victor cannot ignore. I should have been your companion, but instead, I became your outcast. For a moment, the wind moves quietly across the mountains, and neither of them speaks. Two beings stand in the silence, bound together by the same tragic beginning. Standing in the cold mountain air, the creature makes a quiet request, not for revenge, but for companionship. It asks Victor to create another being like itself, someone who could share its strange and lonely existence. We would disappear, the creature promises. We would leave humanity behind forever. Victor listens in troubled silence, because part of him knows the creature is right about one thing. No living soul has ever shown it kindness, and that cruelty has shaped what it has become. Reluctantly, Victor agrees, but the promise feels heavy in his heart. Soon he travels far away from home, to a remote place where no one will witness his work. Once again, Victor begins the terrible process of creation. Long nights, silent laboratories, and restless thoughts. But this time, something feels different. A quiet fear grows stronger with every passing day. What if he creates something even worse? What if two lonely beings become two angry ones? What if their story spreads suffering across the world? One night, Victor finally makes his decision. He cannot finish the second creature. Before the life can begin, he destroys the unfinished form. And in that moment, he hears something outside the window. The creature has been watching. The creature's face fills with quiet rage, not wild fury, but something colder. You have taken away my only hope, it says. Then it leaves Victor with a final promise, one that will follow him for the rest of his life. I will be with you on your wedding night. From that moment on, tragedy moves through Victor's life like a shadow. Friends and loved ones become part of the growing loss. Victor chases the creature across countries and frozen landscapes, driven by grief, anger, and regret. But the distance between them never truly closes. Creator and creation remain forever linked. Two lives shaped by the same irreversible moment. When we step back from the story, something interesting appears. Frankenstein is often called a story about monsters. But the deeper question is much quieter. Who in this story is truly the monster? Is it the creature who was born different and rejected by everyone it met? Or is it the man who created life and then refused to care for it? The creature begins its life gentle and curious. It watches the world with wonder, not anger. It learns language. It learns kindness. But what it never receives is acceptance. And slowly, we see something uncomfortable in that truth. Sometimes cruelty is not born, it is taught. There is another quiet question hidden in this story. What does responsibility really mean? Victor wanted the glory of discovery, the excitement of creating something impossible. But when that creation became real, he turned away from it. In many ways, the tragedy of Frankenstein begins in that moment, the moment curiosity replaces compassion. It reminds us that creating something is only the beginning, whether that creation is an idea, a discovery, or even another human life. The real challenge comes afterward, when care and responsibility must follow curiosity. And perhaps the most human part of this story is the creature's loneliness. At its core, the creature does not want power or revenge. It simply wants someone to see it and stay. That quiet desire desire feels surprisingly familiar, because most people carry some version of that hope: to be understood, to belong somewhere. Frankenstein reminds us how deeply rejection can shape a person, and how powerful even a small moment of kindness can be. Sometimes the difference between compassion and cruelty is simply whether someone chooses to look closer. There is also something quietly tragic about Victor himself. He begins as a young man filled with curiosity and wonder. Like many people who want to understand the world, who want to push the boundaries of what seems possible. But curiosity without reflection can become dangerous, especially when it moves faster than wisdom. Victor wanted to unlock the mystery of life, yet he never stopped to ask what responsibility that power would carry. And in the end, the very discovery he dreamed about became the source of his deepest regret. Perhaps that is why Frankenstein continues to resonate today. Not because of horror, but because of recognition. The story quietly asks questions many people still struggle with. What happens when ambition grows faster than compassion? When knowledge expands faster than wisdom? What do we owe to the things we bring into the world? Whether they are ideas, inventions, or even other lives. And perhaps the most gentle question of all: how different might the creature's life have been if just one person had welcomed it without fear? In the end, Frankenstein is not simply a story about creation. It is a story about loneliness, about what happens when someone enters the world without guidance, care, or belonging. It reminds us that every life begins fragile, shaped slowly by the kindness or cruelty it encounters. And perhaps that is the quiet truth beneath the entire story. Sometimes the line between monster and human is drawn not by nature, but by compassion. And now the mountains grow quiet again. The wind moves softly through the snow. The story fades back into silence, leaving only its questions behind. Thank you for listening and for spending this quiet time inside the story. Until the next quiet volume.